والله كلهم راحات. بهيش.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in today's session. And once again, welcome you all to session 6 of your MPA module. So before I begin today's session, like usual, I'd like to ask my learners, how have you all been? And taking into consideration it's your weekend, some of you all would have got an off today away from work, and few of you all would still have been managed to get your official works done. So let me check on chats. Okay, that's Nikki out there. Good evening. I'm still admitting people. They're joining one by one. So maybe first couple of minutes we can just admit people parallelly. And Mariana, hello everyone. Oh, Malik, and we have Sadid. Sadid, I think only a few minutes ago I got your email on the query. On the proposal. I think you've given an outline, and probably during the break or post the session, I'd review that. For the rest of you all, so far, I've had a couple of emails. Some of them have asked me if the revised title from their end holds good to carry forward. So a few of them I have suggested the objectives and research questions as well. So, except for Sadid, whose email just came a few minutes ago, the rest of them I think I've addressed. Just in case if I missed any, probably send me a reminder. So, yeah, Mariana.
Good evening. I just have a quick question. My title was approved, but I just have a little modification.
Mhm.
I put instead it was like for accounting services, but at the end I'd like to go with financial services.
Okay, you just want to
If
change
I can
offshore
change it.
outsourcing into financial services.
Oh, yes. If
Oh, that's
it's not a
absolutely fine.
problem, or I have to write an email.
No, 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 no. That holds good so far. I mean, as long as your proposal is yet to be uploaded to the learning management system, it's absolutely fine. So it's still okay to substitute from accounting to finance. That's
Okay,
fine.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome, Mariana. And a couple of you all, just a heads up, you may be looking into where can you find the revised title. In fact, the spreadsheet that I shared with you all has a second tab. This is the first sheet which you people have worked on. The second tab says revised proposal. So this is where I have attached. So if you notice the background, okay, I just need to add people. All right. So if you notice in the background, the names which has the backdrop of green is good to go. Probably this is what Mariana was trying to state. So Mariana, in the second tab, you can edit. Okay, instead of accounting, that's what you were stating. You could edit it here. So people who've got the background is green, good to go. Start working on your objectives, research questions, gap analysis, and your problem statement. Um, and those of you all have a red backdrop, so you may have to rework on that particular title, or just let me know what is your area of interest. I mean, I've still not heard from these people. So ensure that you at least get into, yeah, an understanding of what exactly you want to take on shaping your title towards. And the yellow one, geography, is yet to be uploaded. So which is why I've just color coded it as yellow, and green, again, good to go. The people out here in the red, again, please double check. And you're always free to draft an email to me. And apart from this, I've also posted this as an image format on the chat box of your previous session. So if you notice the previous session link, you'll be able to see on the chat all the images And there is a live spreadsheet as well for you that's made available. So in today's session, I'm going to give you actually a thorough overview on what exactly forms the basis of your process up next. See, generally, learners would quickly understand and have their best of all potential in line with knowledge sharing and knowledge enhancement. And that's how I can see that your work is taking shape. But apart from that, I also want my learners to know what exactly is the process. Unlike your part A component of 6 modules, here precisely, I'm going to walk you through probably the first half. I'll be engaging in the lecture. And after that, I literally want to walk you through the process. Now, the process is inclusive of your submissions, where to submit, and what files to submit. And apart from that, what is your process up next on your presentation? Like I mentioned in the first session, this particular MP module, the output of it is going to be in the form of your assignment brief. Again, that is the research proposal. In fact, technically, you're working on your proposal simultaneously, and people who have got their title approved, some of you all have started working on your objectives, research questions, and now's the time that you collate everything into a Word document, which means ideally you need to start putting your thoughts into the Word doc. So download your assignment brief, and I'll also give you some guidance document pertaining to the NPM. So first half, I'm going to use it for lecture. And the second half, thoroughly, I'm going to give you a full understanding of just not the proposal, but also the dissertation and how the process carries forward and how's your marking been undertaken, especially with regard to the projection of the scores, even on your transcript. So I'll be walking you through end to end on the process-oriented aspect of the part B. And first off, I'm technically going to use you on the time for the iteration for your Sanders Research Onion, and also on the study of a little bit of data analysis. For the next session, there is going to be an upcoming Thursday. I have budgeted my time into 2 categories of your data collection and analysis. One is going to be, of course, your quantitative study, and the other one is qualitative study. So I'll be introducing certain statistical tools for you so that you can work on those tools, and maybe a little bit of hands-on experience on Excel, because this is something that basically everyone would have on their system for you to run a drill alongside me. And apart from that, we have SPSS as well for the inferential statistics to run through. And some of you all may choose slightly a combination of inferential and descriptive statistics. So I'll be giving you certain links which can help you to work on the descriptive statistics as well. But predominantly, the university insists on inferential statistics like a correlation, regression, ANOVA, things like that. So your supervisor is definitely going to help you on choosing which, especially for the survey, I'm talking about the quantitative data analysis, so choosing which or what classification of the software or the analysis you need to run. This is purely going to be based on the type of the questionnaire and the research questions, which you're going to structure as well. On the flip side, the qualitative aspects, people who have kept in mind or would like to opt for an interview. So you need to do a thematic analysis. We do have multiple softwares, but I would recommend NVivo. And again, I'll be providing links for the same in my next session on Thursday. So technically, Thursday is going to be a session for chapter 4, that is data collection, analysis, and interpretation. And finally, we're going to wind up with conclusion and recommendation. And on the next Saturday's session, which is going to be our 8th and the final session for the MPM module. So I'm going to run through completely end to end on how you need to run the show. But this session's second half is going to be quite vital because I want the learners first to know the process, because sometimes you may be very well versed when it comes to articulating the proposal, or content clarity is really exceptional. But following the procedure, you may slightly fumble. So once you get the idea, you can budget your time efficiently because you're all working professionals, and some of you all may not be from the core research background as well. So I'm going to run through that. So please ensure after the break you have a notepad or a Word document or some sort of a sticky note beside you to keep a check on certain aspects. Nevertheless, I have a few aspects on my spreadsheet which I'm going to screen share. Probably I'll provide that as a screenshot as well. And by now, you should have received the timeline for your presentation. So presentation is one of the main component, but it's a tentative timeline. So by next week, probably I'll be giving you a hint on the weekly email, the actual schedule for your presentation. So we'll just let you know what could be the actual schedule. If not in the weekly email, at least by next Thursday, you'll be getting a confirmation on the schedule for your presentation as well, so that you can block your calendar or check at your workplace for the 15-20 minutes permission away from work for your presentation as well. So that note, yes, session 6. In the previous class, in fact, this is where I paused. I was talking about the qualitative method, and prior to that, I was discussing about the quantitative method, and interview is where I pose my aspect of facilitation as well. So these three I'm going to cover now for a better understanding on the qualitative method. And predominantly, the learners are bound to use, per se, interview as a process, because as a qualitative method of research, okay, before I explain, let me ask the learners. I'll see if you can recall what exactly is qualitative method in your research. Can someone say me? Or explain it to the class in your own words. What exactly is qualitative method? I know you would do good. Or you can use the chat as well. Qualitative method in research, what does it mean? Qualitative method. I'm certain that few of you all would use this method as part of your research as well. So we're looking at the qualitative method. Okay, the theme says it's interviewing. So interviewing is one of the method in the qualitative study. So what exactly is qualitative method? When do we use qualitative method? Interviewing is definitely the correct answer as a method of qualitative study. But what exactly, or when exactly, do we use this qualitative study? Okay, Nikki, you're there. Information, bottom up as a starting point. And okay, that's nice. She's giving me Sunday's outlay, inductive, exploratory research using interview or focus group, and pair passive sampling. All right, these are all going to be definitely a classification under the qualitative aspect. So they're all giving me an overview of Sunday's research onion as well. But when do I use it? And Nikki says information bottom up as a starting point. So when can I apply qualitative method? See, some of you all may be still struggling to identify, should I take a quantitative or qualitative study? Maybe your first hack would be, okay, depending upon the respondents that I'm going to choose, I will conveniently pick qualitative or qualitative. That doesn't work in research. Okay, neither. Inductive. Yeah, you're giving me the right connect, but when do you think is an appropriate way to pick qualitative study? The interview part exploratory. It's all absolutely fine. But if someone who doesn't know, but the research asks, when do you use qualitative and why do you use qualitative study? You can't just tell them interview. So if you choose to do interview, then it's a qualitative. Why and when, as part of research, should I use this? Okay, I see Miriam. Understand people's experiences, some are close. And Michael, usually looking at opinions and observation to develop a theory and test against it. Yes, you're looking at developing a theory. That's what I wanted to get in as a major point here. If you notice, I think probably, I just run through this. Yeah, if you notice, we were giving a pattern. I concluded. See, I haven't deleted anything. There's my previous sessions slide. Inductive, observation, patterns, theory, right? So the word theory I had mentioned explicitly for an inductive study. So what you're saying, inductive, everything is correct. But why do I need to use a qualitative, and in what case can I take this further? And here in deductive, I'm just confirming or modifying the theory, right? So we have spoken about it. I was just testing your knowledge. So one right answer there from Michael's side. And Manisha, in case of exploratory research, yes, you can have classifications of research as part of it. But first of all, try and understand a qualitative research applies when you as a researcher seek to understand human experience, behavior, or a social phenomena which in depth needs to get an outcome, which is actually non-numerical. Unlike a quantitative data, which is numerical, this is something non-numerical. When I'm talking to someone in the form of interview, I'm getting much of the behavioral aspect, experience of a person, and this creates a phenomena within me where I can create a theory out of it. So you're focusing in a qualitative study, why, how, and you precisely are looking at a non-numerical data. It could be through words, it could be through observation, or it could be sometimes through images as well, where we like to get the response of the respondents. So it's highly important that when I structure a theory, you need to create a theory, end of your qualitative study. And that's the beauty of it. Like, no one did that, but your study is going to do that with 12 or 13 or 15 respondents. So you'll have to pay attention whenever you're getting into any of these classifications of a qualitative study. In fact, I've narrowed down which is applicable for your level of study at master's. So interview, most of you all will pick with and go with interview. The reason is it is good at, it's quite direct, and there's always a one-on-one conversation between you and the participant of your study. So you're trying to gather your thoughts of the person, experience, feelings, insights, whatsoever relevant to your research. And in interview as well, we have 3 subsets. The first one in the interview is structured interview, which means you have predetermined set of questions, like let's say a survey, which you have is a predetermined question. So likewise, you'll have in an interview a predefined question, but in person, you're going to interact with that set of questions in a structured interview. Then you have a semi-structured interview, which is quite flexible. What do you do here is you have a guide which will allow you to have follow-up questions in a semi-structured interview. It's not like the relevance of one question doesn't have a connect over other, but rather indicates what your objective. In semi-structure, they may have chain of connection, like a follow-up question. The first question's answer like how you have this fireside chat, right? So when someone is responding to you, suddenly pick that up and then you go. It is semi-structured. Probably sometimes you have a sort of guide, but when you talk to the person, you get some information from which you link through other questions. So it's semi-structured. It could be spontaneous as well, but you have a user guide for it because you're prepared to ask these set of questions, which covers your objectives. And third one in the interview is unstructured. It's kind of an open-ended conversation that you try to explore topics as they emerge as well. So fundamentally, we don't advise learners to do unstructured or structured or a semi-structured holds good at your level. And then the grounded theory. And what happens in a grounded theory? Now, this is again very systematic in nature when we do qualitative research. Now, the goal here is to generate theory from the information that you've collected rather than you starting a hypothesis of your own. In qualitative study, you define a hypothesis and through your data, you're going to test those hypotheses to see if you're accepting or rejecting the hypothesis. But here in the grounded theory, my intention as a researcher is to generate a theory from the information that I'm collecting from multitude of respondents. And here I don't need to create any hypothesis. Rather, I need to generate a theory through the data collection, that is through the information. Now, as a researcher, you're going to collect, analyze all the information simultaneously, wherein you can discover patterns, concepts, or any sort of relationship of terminologies between these respondents, which will help you to generate a theory. It's pretty systematic. So what do you do in a grounded theory? You collect qualitative data, maybe through interviews or observations, and then you code those data into categories or themes. And then what do? You compare the data to refine your categories further. And then you develop the theory grounded with the observed data, which is technically your information. So that's how grounded theory works. Sometimes, even if you think, when you're trying to study and how people adapt to remote work, if that's going to be a topic. So you will try to interview multiple people, that is multiple employees who are working remote. And you will notice that there are recurring themes, which means sometimes remote people will feel they're isolated. They're happy that the schedule is flexible, and they have to be self-disciplined because no one is going to monitor them in-house, right? So they have to be self-disciplined. So when you're getting terms like these, over a period of time, what you're noticing, you need to start coding them. You need to start getting them into a theme where you can cluster them. So this theory, over a period of time, will emerge as what could be an analysis of a theory that you can create. So real world experience is closely linked to generating a theory here. And then we have focus group. A focus group is a guided discussion. So generally people feel that, okay, focus group is like, we'll have typically 5 or 10 participants who are, given a point of discussion. Yes, the conversation always goes in that way. But then in a focus group, the guided discussion happens within a small group. We can't expect to have 50 people or 100. That's humongous for a focus group. And always a researcher should have a guided discussion in a focus group. So when you are guiding them, you don't divert the discussion. Let's say if you're involving 6 to 12 people in a discussion, 6 may have similar opinion, but the rest 6 may still take the topic to a different level. They may deviate. So you need to cluster all together, which is why we call it as a guided discussion. So their perception, their opinion, their experience should be on a particular topic. The exploring aspect should be on that topic alone. So in a focus group, always the researcher should involve in guided discussion. So as a facilitator, you need to guide the conversation. Open-ended question is definitely the category of focus group, but typically have minimal people and you need to explore the group dynamics as well. So sometimes there will be mutual consensus. Sometimes there'll be contradictions. So you'll need to guide, help them to navigate in accordance with the topic that you picking up as well. Okay, I see a couple of chat. Wanisha, in case of exploratory, okay, that was for the previous question. When the research topic is not well understood or lacks existing theories, qualitative methods help generate, yeah. So she's answered the previous question. I just read the chat. And Michael, can you interview a possible respondent? Someone not in line with your research, but involved in, yeah. Okay, that's a good question there. For those of you all who are trying to understand what this placebo respondent is all about. Now, technically, this will be a person, a respondent, who would participate in your research, but is not given the real term of intervention. Instead, what you're doing, you're giving the person a placebo, which means a substitute with no active effect of your current study. So what you do as a researcher, you can compare that person's response or behavior with those of the real treatment group or respondent who is actually within the rhythm of your study. Now, why do we do this actually? Is we check whether the changes in the responses are due to the actual treatment that me as a researcher who needs to undertake, or simply because the person believes that they're receiving something. Like sometimes, in an interview, especially in a qualitative study, there's always a psychological effect. So in order to get that double checked is where we get the placebo respondent. So in your question, can we do this? Possible. Yes, you can do it, but do not have too many placebo respondents to get it because it gets pretty diluted. So if you're picking a range of 10 to 12 people in your qualitative study, then in that case, at least you can have two on an average or three, not more than that. Because first of all, we have limited respondents, and the more it gets diluted, then we may have skewness in our data, but it's a good way to be undertaken, Michael. Thanks for bringing in that. So placebos, we do undertake that as part of the research as well. So technically, we have two groups in research. One side we will have the actual respondents who on a real-time basis could be directly associated as a respondents, and the other side we have placebo. So possible, yeah, you can take that into consideration, provided you get a good response or study. And it's really helpful, I have read probably in a few of the articles because people do this drill as it eliminates false positive results based on expectations as well. So to get into that level, people do undertake this study, and much more into social sciences is what we take this than business management for now. So you can pick and choose that. So that's a good discussion there. Like a control group, maybe? Yes, it's possible. So one side you'll have control group, that is respondents of control group, and the other side you can have placebo people. It's possible. You can have two groups just to check the outcome there. Nice. And the next one is narrative analysis. So when we get into narrative analysis, I would suggest at your level that will take too much of time to have a narrative analysis because, um, excuse me, narrative analysis, the study indicates too much of stories of people, in order to understand how they make sense of their experiences, you need to get them speak. That's how it's narrative. So as a researcher, you have to focus more and you have to structure the content and also the context of narrative. That is really important. If not, again, the collective narratives sometimes gets on interview. Even diaries, we try to use the logs and diaries which people maintain as narratives, which is also one of the form of data collection. And you would have seen people, personal stories, they try to use in diaries as well. They log it on a day-to-day basis. And you have a tendency to analyze how the story is told as well. Probably the sequence, the language, the perspective of the respondents are completely recorded in it, but you are highly responsible to interpret the underlying meaning or the identity of that individual through the narratives. So when you're exploring your study and when it requires the experiences of people, is where the narrative analysis comes into the picture as well. So sometimes in medical field, you have to understand the stories of people, especially patients with chronic illness. If you may have to do study, you may get into narrative analysis because you need to capture the meaning of the identity of the person pertaining to that chronic illness, whatever you're studying on. So you may have multiple respondents with a chronic illness, and then they start narrating. So different people may have different stories. So some may say at the age of 6 is when this started. Some may say very recently. Some may say post my marriage is when this happened. So you may have different narratives. It highly depends upon the interpretation of the researcher in this case. So you must be in your potential best to get the input. And the next element is time horizon. So in time horizon, this is also one of the layers in Sanders' research, and I'm going to compile this in a niche, and then we'll run through one by one for recalling all the points. So time horizon, again, a research cannot run infinite. So there must be time-bound application for the study as well. So time horizon in research is where the time frame during which the data collection takes place for a study is evaluated under. So time acts as a very crucial component because as a researcher, it allows you to observe similar study over a period of time. So you need to look at the development over a period of time. You need to look at how your analysis is taking shape over a period of time as well. So in research, we have two classifications of time horizon. The first one is the cross-sectional studies. So what happened in a cross-sectional studies is it's a one-shot study. So in your cases, and most of the doctoral cases as well, we try to do a cross-sectional study. It's a one-shot study. So what we try to do here, we use data and collect the data only once from a sample to answer these research questions. See, let's say even qualitative or quantitative. You don't time and again go pester the person. Today, if Nikki is conducting an interview with Michael, now Nikki is going to use that only one shot opportunity with Michael for interaction. She may have a structured interview undertaken with him. And again, let's say Venetia and Miriam. So Miriam needs to approach Venetia, and she has a semi-structured interview with some guided points. So They both meet, they have a schedule fixed, and probably over a cup of coffee or something, they begin their interview. And that is all. Miriam notes down everything. So we don't get multiple run through in a cross-sectional study. So that's a one-shot study and data collection that you do. Again, in your survey, let's say I find the theme's chat there. So the theme needs to do a survey, and he's conducting survey. He's sending it to 100 people. So these 100 are respondents. You're sending it at one go. Now, all these 100 respondents, once they've responded, the theme is not going to resend the same questionnaire to different set of people or those set of people pertaining to this study. One shot, done. So the purpose here is to provide a snapshot of a phenomena at a single point of time in cross-sectional study. So usually we tend to take a representative sample of the population to undertake the cross-sectional study here. So that is where you people belong to as well. On the flip side, I have longitudinal study. In longitudinal study, the data is collected at multiple points in time from same sample or from same observers who are part of the research. Now, why do I get into longitudinal study? I need to track developments. I need to check the trend over a period of time. Let's say I do an annual trend analysis for the period of 5 years, then probably once in every year, I have to get into longitudinal study with the same respondents. So I need to track the development or the effect of my respondents over that 1 year. So I have to use the same sample here in the longitudinal study repeatedly. That is, the representation of your population over a period of time is going to be constant. I take 60 in the first year, the same 60 I'm going to study in second year. Or I do a quarterly analysis. I take the first quarter, 100, second quarter, the same 100. So some observation when you get into, we have this longitudinal study as well. So the number of data point here is multiple in a longitudinal study, unlike a cross-sectional, which is just going to be one data point at one snapshot. Simple as that. So for you, by default in Sunday's Research Onion, you have to opt cross-sectional studies because you're not going to revisit these respondents over a period of time. And the next aspect is the primary and secondary data. So primary and secondary data are going to be as part of your research as well. Can you give me examples of primary and secondary data? So what do you think fits into primary or secondary data? Examples. All right, this data I feel is a primary data. So what could be part of it? Any illustration which you feel fits into either primary or secondary. Yeah. Fundamentally, what you're going to do is going to be part of the primary data collection. It's primary. It's a first-hand information. To think in those terms. All right, I get a, okay, as for Michael, answers to an interview questionnaire equals to primary data collection here. And the theme, secondary data is existing information that has already been collected by someone else, like in journals, reports. Good, well said. Both have answered 1 point each on primary and secondary. That's correct. Yes, the theme.
Hi. I have a question on the survey, if this is
Hmm.
the right time to ask.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So the survey has to be sent to 100.
Respondents.
Yes. So what's what's the minimum percentage of information that we should be able to gather from those 100?
Okay, so uh, the tendency of people sometimes, I've seen researchers who aim at 100 but get 150, 120. But if you're squeezing at 100 and the turnout is 80, 75 is what the university accepts as minimum. Anything below 75, they're going to reject. So if you're aiming at 100, getting a 75, it's a good number. But below that, they would not be entertaining, or at least your scores would get deducted. So aim for 100, and the minimum we can land up to is 75.
Okay. And the audience or respondents that we send to, is there, we need to find some the relevance to our industry, correct? Or
Absolutely. Yes. I'll be talking about the sampling method as well.
okay.
So there should be either contributor in that particular field. So let's say if you're looking for engineers, and the person has to be an engineer, of course. So the field of study should have relevance to the respondents.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So again, Michael comes back. Literature reviews based on absolutely. Yeah, that's correct. So thank you, both of you, for answering that. So primary data, fundamentally what you're doing is a primary data collection. Now, this is going to be a first-hand information that you as a researcher is going to collect for your study. So whatever data you're going to collect in the form of interview or in the form of survey, so this is directly from your source of respondents. So which means that becomes a part of the primary data. So collecting the information directly from respondents, and again, which you're going to tailor specific to your research, is the primary data collection. So your survey, questionnaires, face-to-face interview, what you do, observations, or your focus groups comes under primary data collection. And the secondary data collection, this information that has already been existed, or the data has already been collected or analyzed or published per se, like Michael said, no, Tafim, I think, academic journals, right, which is published already. So here, we as a researcher will try to use a secondary source to understand the background information that can supplement towards a primary study. So that becomes a part of a secondary data. So an existing source, which could be online database, government reports, your books, company reports, your annual reports of the company, all these could be part of your secondary sources. So technically, they're already published or they're already been studied and made available to you. Handily is the secondary data. So these are some of the examples for the primary and secondary data. So poll, survey, interview, focus groups are going to be the primary data, first-hand information, and these are secondary data. Okay, so I'm going to give quick terms here. So you can just use the chat box to respond and let me know which category of data does this fit into. Is it primary or secondary? So don't type primary data, just give me primary or secondary. That should be the quick response from your side. So let's go with the first one. Focus groups. You're going to just post on chat. Is it part of primary data collection or secondary? All right. Yes, that's primary data collection. How about experiments? experiments. Okay, that's again primary data collection. I'm just going to put the alphabet P there. All right, the next one. Okay, I'm going to have industry database, primary or secondary. Yes, that's quick. Yeah, that's secondary. Okay, archived data. Archived data. Is it primary or secondary? Secondary, perfect. And dairies are probably journal. Okay, what if I split this? Now, can you tell me? How about dairies? How about dairy? Dairies are always primary. Like I told, during your focus group study or when you're studying illness about people and you're having them on focus group, so when you ask them to get into narrative analysis, that becomes a part of the primary study. Okay, and journal. Moving to the next one, journal. Okay, Nikki's question is journal also primary. The term journal, sometimes if you take it as diaries, to keep the log record, then it is primary. But when you have journal articles, it becomes secondary. Okay, just to give you clarity there. To journal, even diaries, we sometimes call it as journals, right? When you maintain logs, the diaries are called journals. So in association with this as a synonym, it's a primary. If it's journal article, excuse me, let's say your peer-reviewed articles, journal which becomes a part of your literature review, right? I'll just put it as lit review. So this will give you an understanding. All right. So don't get confused. Sometimes journal, we associate them as diaries as well. So which is why I had to split the first option there. So not bad. People have got right. And I saw one question, again, I think it's Michael, before the chat, which appeared. Does the university have guideline as to amount of questions required in an interview session? Okay. The norm here, just not for Michael, but for others as well, who are planning to do a qualitative study, one objective should at least have 4 questions. All right. And the requisite by the university is for you to have 3 mandatory objectives, right? So in that case, 12 questions are mandatory. And if you need to get the variance spread beyond 12, you can go up to 15 questions. So that's the response for people who have planned to pick qualitative analysis. So per objective, have 4 questions. Irrespective of quantitative, this applies. And if you're doing a quantitative study, please do not include the demographic factors as part of your question. Let's say name, now we have got it redundant. We don't want anything explicitly mentioned in the questionnaire for a survey. I'm talking about name. Exclude it. We don't need it. And unless otherwise your research specifies on gender, where you need a projection of male and female respondents. If not, just remove that. Your salary, and other factors, geography, whichever you need to get it on part of demographic factors, please do not add that as a part of question. Your actual question would begin from the part of your objectives and research questions only. So no demographic factors will be part of your question numbering. So please ensure that you don't do that mistake. Yeah. And finally, we get to the Sanders research onion. So this is how it appears. In fact, this image is mandatory in your proposal and in your presentation. So ensure to attach this, and also whenever you come up with the image, please give the source of the image as well. So that is, again, primitive part of your Harvard referencing style. So from where you extracted that image, mention the source as well as part of your study. So research onion is this, and this is what we need to peel. In fact, you notice the layers here. Yeah, I'm just expanding this. So you notice the layer here. We start from the outer layer. All right, so this is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth layers it's got. So we technically start from the outer layer while describing about the Sanders research onion. It's mandatory that you need to provide this as part of your study. Okay, I'll provide this because I've taken this from one of the journal articles. Out of all the images, I could see this particular image, which has clarity and all the 6 layers, if you know, is evident in this particular image. So I thought this could be the appropriate one. I'll provide the source, Tafreem. I'll provide the source in the chat so you people can use that towards the left-hand side of your Word document in your proposal and dissertation. All right, so not everything in this becomes the part of your study, okay? It's quite overwhelming, probably, and please ensure to focus a little because not all of these becomes part of your study, which is why I said every layer has one particular terminology which needs to suit best for your study. Now, let me give a background of this research onion. How did it even come into the picture in fundamental aspect of research? Now, this was introduced by Mark Sanders. So the name comes from the very own person who introduced it. And along with Mark Sanders, Philip Louis and Adrian Thornell. So they collectively wrote a book. And the book is titled as Research Method for Business Students. So this particular book actually was introduced in the year 2000, if I'm not wrong. That was the first edition of the book that was published by these people. And they created this book to help the people, students especially, and the research scholars especially, to systematically design the methodology. So your methodology of the research should be thought through these layers. That was their ideology as well. And some of them may be thinking, okay, what sort of data collection do I do? I saw Manisha mentioning probability sampling. And when you're giving examples like this, how do you land up there is the important thing. So as an eye-opener to researchers is where this particular Sanders research onion was created. So this model, if you notice, it has been refined into integrated 6 layers. So onion is actually a metaphor. They've used it as a metaphor because when you peel onion, it always has layers in it, right? So for you to reach the core of the data collection, you will have to surpass through all these layers, meaning each of the outer decision should be taken before you inwardly move towards the data collection. That's the crux of this structure as well. Now let's try and understand one by one what the layer is. Now, the first layer, looking at the image, you let me know what's the first layer. We'll do some mind game now. Looking at the image, let me know what's the first layer. What's the first layer? And this is one of the most simplest image. Yes, the field, philosophy, correct. So some of you all may look and just tell data collection and analysis. I've had learners telling that, which is why I wanted to pose this question. So the first layer is the outer layer. That's how I said the model has 6 layers. Starting from outer layer, you'll have to get into inner data collection, for which you need to surpass each layers. So philosophy, that's a correct answer. Thank you. So philosophy, if you notice the color code, you'll understand. All the layers color coded are these 6 layers, or that is named as well. So first and foremost, we have philosophy. Now, philosophy is the first thing here. Research philosophy, that's what we say. Now, research philosophy, when you're looking at the world view, or now put all yourself as a protagonist, as a researcher, right? So when you're looking at the world view or the belief about how the knowledge is created, you are trying to underpin the whole research design. So when you're underpinning the whole research design is where these terminologies come into picture. If you notice, positivism, critical realism, interpretivism, postmodernism, and pragmatism. We're looking at major aspect here. The positivism is based on facts, measurement, or let's say scientific approach when your research is undertaken, like let's say a lab experiment. At that time, your philosophy should be positivism. All right? And interpretivism. Interpretivism actually focuses on understanding the meaning and human experiences. Now, for those people who are choosing interview, blindly you can close your eyes and pick interpretivism. Why? Because interpretivism totally talks about focusing on understanding how human experiences or meaning is being extracted about a particular social phenomenon through human experience. So technically in an interview, you're doing that. So that becomes interpretivism. Then we have realism, critical realism. Someone is trying to join, but the internet connection is poor. Yeah. Then we have critical realism. Now, realism believes in reality. It says, in reality, this exists, but it can be perceived differently. Sometimes it can have a scientific idea, and it can also have socially influenced behaviors as well. So science can prove something, and socially also people are influenced, just like a gender, which is one of the most debatable aspects, which I do not like to get into, comes under critical realism, right? So scientifically, it has its own proof, and socially, it is also influenced when you talk about LGBT and all those. So that gets into critical realism. So it's having a pinch of critique, but realism as well. People believe that, oh, this really exists, which means certain set of people will believe this really exists. And then postmodernism. I've spoken about postmodernism in the previous class. Can you recollect? Postmodernism. As a philosophy, I've spoken in the previous class. Postmodernism. Postmodernism. I even give an example about postmodernism. To recollect, postmodernism, which is spoke on Thursday's class. Postmodernism. Okay, I get one response there. That's by Richard, is a way of thinking or looking at the world that questions traditional ideas. Okay, the term itself says postmodernism. So Richard has given me an answer. Thank you, Richard. And yes, what does postmodernism mean? Right? So we're looking at the critical aspects, the challenges, one objective or single truth here. In postmodernism, we generally look at the context of research that rejects the grand theories, which is very primitive. Now, Richard is told it's a way in thinking or looking at the world that questions traditional ideas. The traditional idea meaning to say what counts as a truth depends upon who or in what way they're telling the story. Now, so far, you would have had multiple narratives or perspectives. I give you an example of climate change, if I'm not wrong. I was trying to tell you that a set of people tell climate change is a hoax. A set of people say, no, it's happening in reality, where I'm trying to look into it, that temperature is rising dramatically, and we can't see that there are natural calamities happening. So in a postmodernism, it encourages the researcher to be reflexive, which means you have to recognize your own position and the bias in the creation of the knowledge. So someone has created a knowledge, doesn't mean you have to accept that knowledge. In postmodernism, I have to recognize my stand, whether or not I choose to believe this or not. So there is always a reflexive response as a researcher in postmodernism. So sometimes if you get a qualitative, open, or interpretive method of inquiry, you can get into postmodern approach as well. It will explore multiple narratives in a certain way of thinking in a postmodernism. So something that existed, you have a stand to whether believe or not. So what Richard was trying to tell, traditional ideas, so that already existed. Probably your great grandfather told something, and your grandfather followed, and your father follows, and you can still stand and say that, no, I have a reflexive on this. So postmodernism and pragmatism. Again, this is one of the philosophy, which is a practical philosophy. We as a researcher focus on what works to the best to answer this question, which means we do not commit to one specific worldview in pragmatism. Instead, we accept both objective and subjective knowledge as a useful mechanism for pragmatism. So depending on the problem you're trying to solve, you will get into the response for pragmatic view. Now, let's say if the aspect of research is finding truth. In a pragmatic view, what is useful, what works for me, and what practice needs to be considered for it to be true. We start looking at that way. In a reality way, if pragmatic approach is used, we don't need to debate on that. We need to focus more on solving problems. So flexibly, when you choose methods based on the purpose as a researcher, in order to solve a problem, you try to choose pragmatic approach as well. So sometimes when people use qualitative and quantitative study, they will get into pragmatic research as well. That is where pragmatic approach is used. And when you get into surveys, pragmatism also takes its shape. And you have focus groups with limited number of employees as well. Pragmatism can be applied as a part of the research. So that is the philosophy. So by default, you need to use one philosophy as part of your research. So you have to peel the first layer on philosophy. The second one is approach. So the approach of the study is where the second layer comes. Now, what exactly is approach? You're logically connecting your theory and the research design in your approach. This is very simple. I have spoken to you already. It only has deduction, induction, and abduction. Now, deductive becomes part of what study? Deductive becomes a part of what sort of study? What's the approach? Is it qualitative or quantitative? You got to be quick. Deductive? Yeah, it's quantitative. So deductive falls under the category of quantitative. Inductive, falls under the category of obviously qualitative. So quantitative, qualitative. So if your study is going to be survey, you're going to pick deductive as your approach or deduction. You can write, but generally we use action words. So deductive is preferable. And if it's qualitative, I choose inductive. And abduction. In abduction, you move back and forth between the data and the theory to find the best explanation, kind of your mixed method, which is not part of your study. University only approves mono method, so you cannot use abduction, which is both combination of qualitative and quantitative. So that goes away. You just have deductive as part of your qualitative study and inductive part of your qualitative study. Nikki's raised a question. Can any philosophies be applied in respect of your research approach is called? No. It has to have interconnection. So that particular study can be applied only for a particular form of study. So based on that is what you can take forward. So that is how it gets into shape. So positivism can be part of your quantitative. Pragmatism, again, you can get an element of mixed. Interpretivism, qualitative. So certain philosophies are applicable only for certain form of study, Nikki. Okay? And deduction, yes, that was an easy pick because I've taught you about it, approaches. Most of you all identified it right there. And the third layer is methodological choice. What sort of methodology should I choose? So mono method is only quantitative or only quantitative. So mono method is the best method that you need to fix. So here, if you notice, mono method quantitative, if you're choosing a survey, mono method qualitative, if it's an interview, multi-method quantitative, again, within quantitative, we have multiple approaches of data collection as well. But for you, we never use the word multi, which is restricted by the university. So your option is to only go between mono method, quantitative, or mono method, qualitative. Only that. And multi-method generally has multiple approaches within the same qualitative or quantitative study. So we technically don't advise you on multi-qualitative or multi-quantitative. Like multi-qualitative has observation, interviews. So altogether, you may have narrative analysis, everything you can do within multi-method qualitative. So we don't encourage people to get into any sort of prefix on multi. Mixed method, again, it's going to be quant and qualitative. Mixed method complex goes on multi-method variations as well. So please stick to first two categories only. And if you choose quantitative, it's deduction. If you choose qualitative, it's induction. And the next layer, which talks about strategy. Now, strategy, in your case, again, you have a wide range of option, but again, it depends on what choice of overall plan you're involved in conducting the study. If it's an experiment, which means you're doing a control testing of variables, it becomes a part of the study in the form of experiment. If it's a survey, again, your questionnaire is used to collect large amount of data, which is why I said respondents are 100. So it's humongous for you, and it becomes part of the survey. Then the grounded theory, I've explained to you, building theory directly from the data, and ethnography, which is actually an immersive observation, which we try to do of a particular cultural group. We categorize that under ethnography. And action research also becomes a part of the study, which is research in collaboration with any direct change or intervention that gets into action research. Now, let's say if I need to study on the motivation factor of employees. So this would be part of my research. And suddenly, as part of my study, I would induce a formula of giving them monetary bonus. And after that, how is their approach? So motivation factor, then the monetary bonus is induced, which means there is a direct change intervention that is taking place as part of my study. And post that, how will people behave as a state of their motivational factor? So this is action research. It has a culmination of direct change of intervention into my research and the actual research itself. Then we also have an archival research, which uses existing records or data. So it's technically the archive items that we use as a part of the research, kind of a secondary analysis. Then the other layer is time horizon. I just introduced to you cross-sectional, which is the data collected at one point in time in a snapshot, which you people are bound to do, and longitudinal, which is the data is collected over a period of time, which means if I need to show a change in the trend and then take it forward at different intervals with the same respondents, I get into longitudinal study. And ultimately, data collection and analysis. So techniques and procedures is what this layer is termed. So the core of Onion, it applies practical method of data collection and analysis. So if you're using sampling method, random, stratified, purposive, snowball sampling comes into it. And data collection, we use questionnaire, interview, observation, experiments as part of it. And the analysis, we do statistical testing, coding, and thematic analysis here. In fact, I'm going to talk about the classifications of the sampling post break. So we'll just break now and ensure to keep this particular image as part of your base for proposal and the dissertation. So in every layer, please ensure that you pick one category. It should have interconnected approach. It's just like how sequentially you have A, B, C, D. Likewise, this layer starts with one approach and then it goes. Let's say, excuse me, I'm doing a quantitative study. I take positivism, deduction, monoquantitative, and in this way, I can either choose action research as part of my study if, the observation has an induced action approach. And if not, survey is the best thing. So blindly, you can go ahead with survey for a quantitative, monoquantitative. Okay, and cross-sectional. And here data collection depends on the sampling. What sample I'm going to choose. And then my analysis also forms as a basis of which correlation, regression depends on my variables as well. So we'll take a break and then we'll get back Excuse me. I'm going to talk to you about the sampling techniques and what sample classification can be part of your study as well. So 15 minutes break. Post that, I'll just catch up with you. Alrighty, I'm continuing with the session. Hope you're all glued to the laptop. So, perfect. All right. Thank you for the thumbs up there. Yeah, Jules. Oh, okay. Neither. Probably Neither's also raised hand. All right. So, welcome back after the session. So, a couple of things on the sample and the population. And after that, I'll be running through the process for you all. So, insight here. Can someone explain to me what is depicted in this image? So one side, you see population, and the other side, you see sample. So what exactly is the depiction of this image? You don't tell me population and sample. So what does it mean? Like population and the sample, what's a depiction? How do you interpret the image? Simple as that. How do you interpret the image?
I think when you look at the image, it's showing that there is a larger population, and then you, out of that larger population, you just sample just a number of it.
All right, that was Thomas, if I'm not wrong. Was it
Sure.
Thomas?
Yes,
okay.
that was me.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas. Well said, in fact. But apart from that, I'd like to add a few more points. I think someone is trying to enter the classroom and it's popping on my screen, distracting. Malik, probably it is. Maybe his internet connection is bad. I'm trying to admit him. It's taking a lot of time and it's reappearing. Okay, so thanks for that, Thomas. And we also see another chat. Sample equals part of research population. A sample is a representation of the greater. Yes, in fact, that's how we define a sample as. It's a representation of the greater population. So thank you, Michael and Thomas, for that. So adding on to both of their points. Now, when it comes to population in research, a population refers to the entire group of individuals. That could be the data sets that a researcher is actually interested in studying. But unfortunately, what happens is a population is too large for a researcher in order to get into the element of data collection. So he or she cannot draw full conclusion from a population, which means a population includes all the members defined in a set of group. So what happens generally in research is we'd like to get the aspect of population clear as a first step, meaning to say the population can include a larger number or a smaller group as well, depending on what sort of research you're trying to do. The other day, one of the learner had included GCC. So that's humongous. Then I said, you'll have to narrow down. And we agreed upon KSA. So when you're looking at the population, it's usually defined on a location, occupation, behavior of any data sets or individuals. So what we try to do in the research is, first we see a set of population, which could be part of the research. Now, this particular population, since the accessibility is going to be quite humongous, we're going to pick a sample, which is going to be the subset of the population, which is why if you see the depiction of the population covers a wider arena in comparison to the sample, which is going to be at a micro level looked into. So in fact, a sample is a subset of the population. Now, this sample is what is precisely being selected by the researcher for the study. When you get into sample, it gets the representation of the population. So this sample is actually going to give the depiction on the representation of the population. And as a researcher, it'll allow me to make inference about the population using just this sample. So it's highly important to select my sample carefully in order to reduce the biasness as well. So technically, population is a whole group that you're looking into, and sample is a manageable or drawn representation from the population as part of your study. In fact, this leads us to have sample. Yeah. In fact, this leads us to have multiple sample, and this particular sample is where we're going to look into as one of the techniques as part of the researcher as well. So we have to pick and choose even our samples carefully as part of our study. In fact, when you look at the diagram, it is divided into two broad categories. One is probability sampling, and the other one is non-probability sampling. Alec, I'm just putting you on mute. Too loud. Please ensure you mute your microphones before you enter the session. All right. So the sampling techniques are broadly classified into two. One is probability, and the other one is non-probability sampling. Now, how and in what way you fit into this sampling is what is important. Now, first of all, I'll give you an understanding of what is a probability sampling and then what is a non-probability sampling. From there, we can pick further analysis. It's not necessary that you need to cover all these elements. Your study will have a representation of only one classification of sampling. It's either probability or non-probability. And under that, any one cluster of sample will be part of your study. All right. So again, it is you as a researcher who has this autonomy to pick the sampling, that is the respondents, as part of your population as well. Now, probability sampling is a representative sampling. If you choose a probability sampling, what happens is, in this, every member of the population has equal chance of being selected, which means the sample, it ensures that the representation of the population will allow more reliable conclusion and generalization. So it is a kind of a representation out of the whole sample that you pick into. In that, we have simple random sampling, which means every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Now, let's say if you choose a company which actually wants to survey the customer satisfaction. And what you will do is you will try to first analyze the database of the customers. So let's say there are 10,000 customers. Now, what you will do in a simple random, using a random number generator, you will select 500 customers out of 10,000 customers for the survey. And what you conclude in a simple random sampling is each customer out of that 500 customer, you conclude to say has an equal chance of being selected out of that 10,000 customers. So you can't sit there and get a survey of all 10,000 customers. So rather, you're trying to pick 500 on a random number generator. Sometimes people get into odd number, even number, or some code we try to use on random generation of the simple sample. The other one is systematic sample. In systematic sample, the members are selected at regular intervals from a list after we try to choose a random starting point. Now, if I may have to check on a retail store and I want to analyze weekly sales of the retail store, and if there are, let's say, 1,000 transactions, then the store can select every 10th transaction to study the sales pattern. So that becomes as a part of systematic sampling. I can have one mechanism in place which can act as a part of the sampling. So if I say 10th transaction, then every 10th transaction out of that 1,000 transaction will become part of my sales study pattern. So that gets into systematic. So I can choose multiples of 2, right? So like that as well, I can fix. So some sort of system you fix, and then you take the sample for the study. And the other one is stratified. Stratified sampling is pretty common. The population is divided into subgroups, which we call it as a strata. Now, these stratas are based on certain characteristics. Per se, random sample is taken from each stratum here. Now, if a bank wants to survey customer satisfaction across different account types they have, savings, premium accounts, business accounts, and personal accounts, they may have multiple accounts. So when they need to do a study on these accounts, they can randomly select 100 customers from each account type to ensure that the whole group or the representation is part of it. Now, whoever is opted, let's say UAE, again, you can do stratified random sampling, which means you have 7 Emirates and you can't have in your title UAE and just pick Dubai or Sharjah, Abu Dhabi and finish your study. That will not give you an output which is essential for UAE. So you can pick stratified random sampling where across 7 Emirates, you're taking a representation of sample to actually subside your study for the title in United Arab Emirates. So which means you need to pick people from Ras Al Khaimah, Al Quwain, Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. So every emirate you're trying to pick and say, yes, I need the study to be undertaken. So you need to cover all 7 emirates. So stratified should be the representation of the whole group as part of your study. Cluster. Cluster sampling, population is divided into different clusters. Often we divide these clusters on the geography, or randomly we select a cluster in itself. Let's say if a multinational company has parent company in US and subsidiary is established in South Africa, in Asia, and in multiple regions, then in that case, a cluster sampling can be undertaken. So what happens in a cluster sampling is you will have, let's say that multinational company, which I'm going to study, I may have to want to get the feedback from the employees across 50 branches across the world. So I randomly will take 10 branches as a sample. I'm randomly going to select, and I'm going to survey all the employees in those branches. So my cluster here is going to be those 10 branches out of 50 branches. So for such studies, you can use cluster sampling. And non-probability. This is actually judgmental sampling. So non-probability, the members do not have equal chance of being selected like probability sampling. Or sometimes they may not get the chance at all to be part of your research as a representation. That is non-probability sampling, which actually falls into the category of convenience sampling as well. So most of them, they choose non-probability sampling just because it is convenient for their research. Excuse me. Now, how do we get there in the first place? Quota is, again, one of the category of sampling. Now, in quota sampling, the population is segmented into categories, and you'll have certain number for each category selected, but they're not random. So if you have an organization and a marketing department in the organization want to survey about the brand which you're trying to create, and this can be across different groups. So they decide to get probably 50 responses from people, and they will have the age range. So people from 18 to 25, 26 to 35, then 50 to or 50 and above, like senior citizens, they may have different category. So they will try to select the participants based on the availability and the representation of each people from this prescribed age group. So ultimately, I have to get 50 responses. So from 18 to 25, I may get set of responses, 26 to 35, set of responses, and likewise. So set of selected participants, but again, it's going to be random. Anyone from 18 to 25, I can pick as a representation. Probably I can walk on street, I can ask someone, what's your age? And are you interested to be part of my survey? And if the person is 24 and says yes, I can fit in that person as part of my survey. So it's going to be on quota basis, and the quotas needs to be fixed. And then you have snowball, which some of you all may use. This actually is the existing study, which will enable you to recruit from one person another person. Or let's say today I try to interview, let's say Michael is trying to interview someone, and that could be probably Richard. And while Richard is being interviewed, Richard says, hey, do you want respondents? Much more to be part of your study. And if Michael agrees, then Richard may refer Hamdi. And Hamdi may sit there for the interview the next day. And let's say Hamdi gets to talk to Michael, asking if you need much more respondents similar to my profile. Then Hamdi may get in touch with Prakash and say, hey, Prakash, listen, we have someone looking for respondents. Would you be interested? Similar profile. So snowball, you know how a snowball has been created. And the moment you run through, it eventually over a period of time rolls up and the ball gets bigger. And that's how the respondents through their acquaintance or the peer group of family members or their very own employees are going to help you find the sample for you. So it's not necessary that Hamdi needs to know Michael, as long as the other link tries to get them connected for the study. And that's how the snowball sampling comes into the picture. And convenience sampling, which generally happens and you just meet people on the pathway, or you feel that these people are going to be absolute respondents for your study, then you get into convenience sampling. You can meet them anywhere and everywhere. And if you need a representation, that representation is what you need to create, whether based on a geography or income group or particular sector. That is what you need to create and get the convenience sampling. And purpose of sampling, again, is judgmental sampling, we call it is. So in purposive, the researcher will select participant based on the expertise or the knowledge field. So some of you who are taking interviews could get into purposive sampling because you need an expert's opinion, which you're looking at. Probably if your title is on CEOs. So you need precisely the response from CEOs or CFOs or business owners like Thomas was trying to talk about. So purposive, you get the participants based on their knowledge or expertise, and then you get into sampling. Self-selection, I would suggest at master's level, don't get into all these aspects. So typical case, critical case, homogeneous and all becomes a part of social sciences. So stick to probability, non-probability, the first layer and second layer only, which holds good for you. Now, a couple of things I would like to discuss, but before that, I just want to explain a few things with you confined to the spreadsheet that I had shared with you all. First things first. Yeah. So, beginning of the session, I was trying to mention about the second page. This is your revised proposal title. I'm not telling topic, it's rather your title. So please go through. People are green as a backdrop. Start working on it. In fact, I think these are green as well. And white shows. Please do not change anything. Okay, I think most of them are approved, and refer to that image as well, which is why I don't post here because it's an editable sheet. So people can change the color. Okay, so check the recording of my previous class. I have posted the snapshot there. And here, what I want you to do as a next activity step, from column J, which is, I've gone to the first tab. From column J, I've added 6 layers of Sanders research onion. Philosophy, approach, method, strategy, time horizon, techniques. I want you to please fill this latest by next class. So please ensure to fill these columns latest by next class. Why I'm telling you is if you struggle in this, I can help you out. I can help you out before the class, gets into a closure. And we'll still have time to rework on these aspects. So these 6 columns, I want you to get it filled for me for your research latest by next session. It's easy. You just need to peel the onion, and I want to see how exactly you try to get that connectivity here. Now, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I want to explain the process of your research up next. How is it going to be part of your study? In fact, I will share this in my existing sheet. But before that, I want you to understand the methodology. Okay, I'll be reading your chats in some time. Allow me to slightly explain your study, and then I'm getting back. Malik, I'll help you here. Probably I've reframed it. You can just check. I'm coming back on the chats. So just allow me some time to explain this particular aspect, and then we can take it forward. Now, a few of you all would have already received the timeline. Yeah, a few of you all would have received the timeline. I'm just going to post it in the chat there. This is going to be the timeline of your dissertation. Have you received an email so far? If you received, well and good. If not, please refer to this timeline. Your submission dates are very important. Okay, can someone post a timeline? I just have a different pattern of the timeline. Okay, someone quickly post the timeline. I think you would have received it through email. I just want you to post the timeline there. Use your chat box.
Sorry. Oh,
You didn't
email
receive the
from.
timeline as yet?
We haven't received email. All
Okay,
emails from
so
you.
not from me, but Cass would have shared the timeline. Not yet? So
I think
Venetia
not
got it.
yet.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. How did Venetia get it? Venetia has just posted. That's the timeline I'm talking about. LMS? Okay, you got it through LMS, not email. Okay, nevertheless, I'm going to attach it in my weekly email. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. That's the same timeline I'm talking about, which is why I was pretty skeptical looking at the colors because I don't color code it that way. So if you notice the image, I'll just put it on my slide so that you'll be able to view it. Okay, so it's part of your elements. That's what Venetia says. Nevertheless, I'm going to add that in my weekly email as well. Just for information, if you notice, tentative dates is given 5th to 7th, right? So as part of your proposal, 5th to 7th is what is the tentative date given. I would slightly correct this because we started our module on 31st July. Okay? And in that case, your proposal submission date will be on 30th. So these two needs correction. Good, Venetia, you told me. So it's an LMS. I'll just instruct Cash to delete this because we started our session on 31st. And then your submission deadline is 30th of August. So here it's incorrect. So I will share the revised timeline with you. So if you have it as part of LMS, ignore it, excuse me for now. But the 31st is when we started. So your submission date will be 7 days from my last class iteration. So which is going to be 30th. So our last session is going to be on 23rd, which means 30th is going to be the proposal and the presentation submission in the LMS. Now, after that, what happens? Once you submit your proposal and presentation, your work is locked, meaning to say there will be no scope of improvement on your proposal to be undertaken because it would be assessed. That's the first thing. Now, there may be certain queries. Would I be able to change or tweak or work slightly on my presentation or the title? Your presentation is still possible because what you're getting graded for a proposal is different in comparison to your presentation. But what you submit, the file is still fine. But that's going to be the final. But you're going to still face off the panelists, which will be between 5th to 7th. So 5th, 6th, and 7th will let you know when exactly will be the schedule for you all. So there'll be different slots, but the dates we will finalize with you. So how this is going to work, let me explain to you in the first place. Now, 30th of August, you're going to submit PPT, which is your presentation and the proposal. Okay, so this is important. Now, in two ways, your evaluation would be undertaken. That is, after you submit on 30th, your submission should happen via LMS only. No emails would be entertained, and we're not going to look into any sort of, exchange on email. Like how you did your first submissions of Part A modules, you're just going to submit all of your proposals, presentation, dissertation chapters in the LMS. Now, I'm going to divide this into two components. One is probably an inserted table so that a better understanding. Okay. So your PPT and your proposal. So once you submit on 30th, so the LMS gateway is not going to help you further. And what you need to make as submission is important. So on 30th, what am I going to submit? First of all, PowerPoint should be in the form of a slide deck only, which means it is supposed to be a PowerPoint presentation. So the format should be in the form of PPT only. Apart from that, you have to turn it in, report in the form of PDF for the PPT. All right. So step one, what you need to submit as part of your LMS document is for the PPT, definitely in the PowerPoint, like the view which you're looking into. My screen now is a PowerPoint. Okay, so you need to prepare a slide deck, and I'll give you the format for the slide deck as well for your presentation. And in your Turnitin, check, you need to undertake a PDF format of your PPT as well. So these two documents. And pertaining to your proposal, you're going to have a research proposal, again in the form of Word doc. Okay, so this should only be in Word document. And barring that, you also need to upload the Turnitin in the form of PDF. So technically, what I'm going to do is, as a learner, I would be in a position to upload 4 files in my LMS. So you will have a pathway where you can upload these 4 files. These are mandatory files as part of your submission on 30th August. 1, PowerPoint, that is in the format of a slide deck, and the Turnitin, which is PDF of your PowerPoint, and even your PowerPoint content should not be plagiarized. Secondly, your proposal should be inclusive of Word doc. Again, use the same assignment brief of the proposal, download, and then add your content. You run it through Turnitin, have a PDF. On the whole, I have 4 files uploaded as on 30th. Now, what happens in the next step? The next step is I will be given a date for my presentation. This is my second step. So technically, I'll be given a date for the presentation. So here, I'm not going to account proposal as a learner, but rather the date would be proposed in the first week of September. So we'll let you know the exact date and I'll get back to you. So what we're going to do here is, okay. So Mustafa's question, no voice at PPT? No. The presentation is going to be live. You're going to do a live presentation with panelists. There'll be 2 panelists, and it will be a 15 minutes presentation plus 5 minutes Q&A with the panel. Any doubt here? Any doubt here? No doubt, right? So, Sanat.
I have a doubt, ma'am.
Yeah.
So as I remember, you mentioned that the presentations content will be it will be taking out from your let's say
Proposal.
from your Word file, from proposal, right?
Yes,
So
that's
the
correct.
proposal, it has a 2,500 words. When you convert into
Correct.
PPT, there will be required a lot of pages, lot
No,
of
you'll
slide deck.
have to condense. You'll have to condense it. I'll
So
give
what
you
is
a
the
format.
limitation?
Yeah, I'll give you a format because see, technically a PowerPoint presentation just needs bullet points. So
Yeah, but what
you may have to
what
explain.
yeah, what
Yeah.
do you have any number restriction there? Like, that will be 10
There is no
pages,
word
10
count
slides.
as such, but I can share a PowerPoint like as to which looks appropriate. Actually, this is one of my learners while he was under my supervision. Okay, so this review, if you notice, so this will be your first slide, which is a cover page, which is a cover PowerPoint, and the title, your name, the student ID. Please use the Plymouth ID, supervisor's name. For now, you can just ignore that because your supervisors will be allocated to you after the presentation. Background of the research is a must. Give us a background of what your research is all about, which will include the problem statement as well. See here, you can just have one paragraph with 4 or 5 lines. Don't clutter it more because that 15 minutes is given for you to speak, not to read the slide. So the more you clutter, we may have to ask you to skip or ask you to condense. So prepare more on articulating your work than, filling the slide with content. So per header, 5 lines would do good, like a problem statement, and aim of the research, objectives, research questions. These should definitely be in points, like you can number them 1, 2, 3. And literature review, citation is essential. And you can bring in, see, at the most, you can have 6 to 7 articles which you can depict, or you can increase it to 2-page, like 2 slides, but at the most, condense it. We don't want you to get narratives here. We want you to speak. So what are the common themes you found in literature? What highlights were identified by you when you did the review? That's what we'd be more interested in. Then the gap, research gap. Again, through the literature review is what you need to do the gap. So if you look at these gaps, which the learner has identified, he's given the citations here, which again coincides with these articles which the learner is produced as well. And then the methodology. Sanders Research Indian. I don't want you to get that image there if you're not comfortable because it's too exhaustive. So the learner was not comfortable. So I told him, get a clip art. So he did a clip art which is inclusive of these layers. If you notice here, positivism, deductive, quantitative, survey, whoever is doing a quantitative study, exactly this will be your connect. Okay, so I made him do the clip art because he said, I'll just try something. This is a young chap who was part of my supervision. So he had all time in the world to get these articulated well. And methodology plan. So you're going to start with your title, then preparatory stage. After that, you're going to look into data, how you're going to collect, when you're going to take. If your methodology is represented in Gantt, even that is fine. So data collection strategy, 15 questions is what I gave an approval for the learner. So demographic, respondents, who he picked it from Kuwait. Sampling techniques, 100 respondents. It's a quantitative study. So this is mandatory, so 100. And first of all, this is a proposal. So you're just proposing, this is your plan. So we're not looking at perfection here, but your ideas is what the matter. And Gantt, if you're good in preparing Gantt like this, well and good. If not, this table is sufficient. In fact, the timeline which we give, you can mimic that in the form of Gantt as well. And then references. Harvard referencing style is mandatory. So what I'll do is I will share this with you all. You can use this as a base for your presentation. And Mustafa, no voiceover. It's a live presentation which you need to undertake as part of your presentation. And Michael, yes. Sanaf, what's your question? You raise your hand. Okay, there's no audio output, but I see your microphone on. I can't. If you're trying to speak, you're not audible. Now, you can use the chat. All right. A couple of more questions here. Peter, worth mentioning all in the info. Okay, about the timeline, yes, I'm going to ask Cass to substitute it. So timeline will be uploaded, re-uploaded in the LMS. So please don't refer to the existing timeline. And apart from that, I'm also going to attach it in my weekly email. And Michael, plagiarism report for PPT and Word doc. For the PowerPoint, PDF should be the report. And for the Word doc, PDF, of course. And apart from that, you have to also produce a Word document of your proposal and the PowerPoint for your presentation. On the whole, 4 files is mandatory, Michael. Mariana, for the presentation, I'll not be available on 10th and 11th. Is that okay? So you need to draft an email on that front, but I don't think we are going to pull it up to 10th and 11th. So it will be within the timeline. All right. So once the dates are given, you can just look into it, but it's definitely not going to be on 10th or 11th. And again, there's not going to be any cancellation in your presentation because it's a mandatory lineup that we are going to get from the university front. Malik, yes, I'll respond to you. I have noted down your chat. I'll respond to you on the title. Don't worry. And Sanada, I seem to have a shoot, but Mike, yes. I mean, not a word I could hear. So that's okay. I think you're still posted on chat. You wanted to ask about the PPT. From what I understand, should be a summary of the proposal. Please confirm. Summary, meaning to say it should be a depiction of a proposal, but in a crux. If summary means crux, yes, like what I displayed. So you can get, and the format of the PowerPoint is available in your module kit. So that is the format for the PowerPoint. In fact, in my next email, I'm going to attach the format. Please download and use that along with the templates. Okay, so hope that answers your question. Any other questions so far? So I'm again coming back on this deck. So technically, presentation is going to be live, which means just like how you're attending today's class, you're going to attend the presentation, not collectively. Each one will be given a 15 plus 5, 20 minutes slot. So based on that slot is where you're going to pick the presentation. It's going to be live in front of 2 panelists. So which is why I say speeden up your work on the proposal so that when I'm in class itself or that particular sheet, emails can get your works classified. By now, I've got at least 6 to 7 learners who have reached at least 25% of their proposal work. So when I'm there, utilize me for your work and get the doubts clarified as to the larger extent. So PPT, yeah. So what happens during the presentation? We'll invite you as per the schedule, and the PowerPoint, you have to screen share and start presenting. So that 15 minutes is all yours. No one is going to stop you, ask you questions. You're going to run your show. Technically, go very subtle. Don't panic, because we're not here to reprimand you on anything. It's your research. It's your baby. You need to get to nurture your research in such a way and make the panelists understand this is the purpose I'm doing this study. Simple as that. We're not going to apprehend, but if there are any, corrections to be made, the panelists will highlight the same. Any sort of corrections, definitely that we'll highlight, and we'll give you certain suggestions which you can carry forward with your supervisor who's going to be with you for your dissertation work. So PPT on that presentation day, just get us the PowerPoint screen share, and only through your screen share, the deck should be utilized. So that happens. So second step is this. First step, as on 30th, you upload all these files into your LMS. Second step, we'll give you a slot, attend online, present it. And now, how grading happens. So how grading is undertaken for proposal and presentation. Now, whatever you submitted in the LMS is part of your grading for proposal. They will score you for 100. So out of 100, 100 is a max marks. So let's say, whom shall I pick? Jonas. Let's say Jonas scores. I'm just giving a hypothetical example. So Jonas scores 71, assuming, in the proposal. So it's beneath the proposal. So Jonas scores 71, irrespective of how much he scores, unlike your part A, for this particular module, as per the university, the module code is BUAM05. Okay, so irrespective of how much ever you try to score, so Jonas scores 71. So technically, as per your part A, it's a distinction. But Jonas would be graded just as pass, which means P in his transcript. So this is what will reflect in your transcript given by the university. Okay. Now, for the PPT, who's going to score? The panelists are going to score you for the PPT. There will be 2 markings, first marking and second marking. First marking will happen from the panelists collectively, and the second marking is a blind marking, where we look into your video of your presentation and then we mark how you have defended, how you articulated. That will not be the same panelist. Now, again, here, the grading pattern is marked for 100. And let's say the panelists And the second marking, we take an average. And again, Jonas tries to score it total for his presentation. I'm just giving 67. Okay. So technically, this is going to be merit. But Jonas would only get pass in the transcript for the university. The particular module for your proposal and presentation is just a pass or fail module. So do not explicitly look for distinction or merit, because this is just a proposal, you know? Although we call it as a blueprint, since it's a proposal, which means there's no concrete information from the learner, apart from the good defense. Now, again, there's a catch. You did not defend well. And let's say the panel declares a fail. Then in the transcript, you're going to get a fail. And also, there are permutation and combinations. Sometimes people get a fail in presentation, pass in a proposal. That time what happens is we will give you another reset. That is along with your junior batch. And that time you'll have to clear your presentation. So don't be too casual thinking it's a pass or fail. Let me not aim at distinction, but you'll have to defend well. You don't defend here well, you would be receiving a F grade, which is going to be a fail on your transcript, and you'll have to resit, which means you're not going to graduate along with your fellow batchmates, but you'll have to resit with your junior batch. And you'll have to clear your presentation. Only then your transcript will get a pass score. So be very cautious. Don't take your presentation too casual. What is required as a part of PPT? I'll give you a prototype. I will also give you the template. Start articulating that. The more you defend, because it's your story, your research, how are you going to run the show? Narrate it. Simple as that. Don't get scared what they're going to question. They will question eventually. That's their job. Panelists are going to do that. Even if I'm there as part of a panel, although I've taught to you, I'm going to ask Jonas, what is this? How do you defend your literature? How do you defend your gap? Jonas should be in a position to answer. So panelists are just going to do their job. But how you're going to defend matters. So it's just going to be a pass or fail module. Although you score a 71 as part of your proposal, eventually a transcript is going to depict only these on the transcripts. Pass or a fail there. Okay? So I'm clear with that. Now, what happens with the dissertation? The dissertation is to be graded and marked, which means you score a distinction, there will be a distinction on your transcript. So dissertation is coded as strategic management project. The dissertation is coded as strategic management project, and the module code is BUM06. Now, how does the grading take place? There's no proposal, there's no presentation component, but rather it is the final dissertation with a maximum marks of 100. Now, again, coming back, if Jonas gets, let's say, the same 71, I'm going to pick 71, which means he's going to get a pass with a distinction, which will get depicted in his transcript. So ideally, his transcript will have a distinction and numerical 71 on his transcript. So be very cautious in your dissertation. Whatever you score, that number will be part of your transcript. Unlike a proposal and presentation, it's just going to show a pass B or F fail. But in a dissertation, you score a 71, you get a distinction there. And let's say someone scores 63, they're going to put you a merit there. And let's say someone scores 55, they're going to add a pass there. So this matters. If you need a UK transcript with a distinction, aim 70 and above. It'll definitely get depicted numerically and the grades as well. Okay, so this is again categorized into 5 chapters. First chapter is introduction. The second chapter is literature review. Third chapter is research methodology. Fourth chapter, data analysis and interpretation. And the last chapter is going to be conclusion and recommendation. All right. So it's highly important that these steps are followed as part of your study. So please ensure that you make an effort, which is why we give you an individual supervisor. So you need to make a considerable amount of effort to get that on transcript. I have a couple of questions here. Let me pick one by one. But meanwhile, I'll add these slides so that you don't miss on these components. I'm going to give a full run through as well on next 2 sessions about your submissions, quality of work, and yes, Tafim, you have a question? As I just saw in the chat.
Yes, I had a question. A bit, I don't know if we should take it up in the next class regarding the surveys.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Like,
right.
how do we
Can you
find the
drop an
audience for the
email to me?
survey?
Yeah, when you talk about surveys, probably I may have to explain to you since we're running out of time. Just drop an email to me. I'll articulate it to you. Should you require, probably I can give you instructions on how to go about it further. Okay?
Thank you.
Because it's going to be exhaustive. I want to give you a detailed explanation. All right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Guys, don't panic. Don't get into panic mode. I mean, research is lovely. I fall in love with research every time I pick up an article or do some literal work in it. So it's lovely. It's just that matter of time you need to focus and get the things in the right direction. And Ajmal, could you please confirm the dates between which yes, next week we'll be letting you know, Ajmal, about the presentation slots. So you'll get a confirmation definitely next week, early next week, latest by Wednesday. You'll be getting to know, or we'll update you. And how many people on the panel? 2. We'll have 2 fraternities, faculties, technically. And would we have a score for the proposal at the time of the presentation? No. No, you wouldn't. And the theme, does the presentation session require us to be on? Yes, that's a good question. It's mandatory your camera needs to be switched on while you're presenting because all of your work, along with the recording, would be sent to the university. So I would highly recommend to get your cameras on. And if you do not switch on the camera, the panelists will not allow you to make your presentation. So please do not get just an image standalone there. Your camera should be on. It's a mandatory requisite by the university. That's a good question there. And Ajmal, thank you. Ajmal, I've responded to your email. I think you had articulated your objectives, questions. I've just done some tweaking there. I responded, but good work so far. And Michael, will the scoring and pass-fail be on the LMS one of the PMU score sheet? It will be on the PMU score sheet. And once your results are declared by the board, it will be depicted in your PMU LMS, we don't call it LMS actually. It's MyMarjan. They use a different pathway altogether. So in MyMarjan pathway, it would be depicted only when they clear it through board. So you will have a board declaration, and after that only the marks would be cleared and depicted on your login. So this LMS, after your dissertation submission, everything, none of the marks would be projected here. It would all be present in your university login. So please ensure you activate the login, because the declaration of results, scores, your email on graduation invite, everything comes through that particular ID, PMU ID. So login, activate it and keep it. So as and when they send updates, everything comes through their MyMarjan Canvas login. Okay, not RLMS. So be a little cautious on that. Please activate it. Yes, Osama.
Okay, I had a question regarding the presentation. So presentation basically is whatever is in the proposal is reflected in the presentation.
Yes, that's correct. But it should be in a condensed form. Maximum of 15 slides would hold good. You can't get your presentations too jarring. So you'll have to get it crisp, but you can talk more.
Okay, another thing regarding the survey, what's the time that we have, the timeline that we have to for collecting the data?
Okay, I would recommend you when you're working on your lit review chapter itself, get your survey or set of questions approved by a supervisor, along with the ethical clearance form. In fact, there are two forms. So one is ethical clearance, the other one is dissertation approval form. So get, after your lit review itself approved, start data collection. If not, after chapter 3 is when we say data collection is must as per the timeline. But I generally recommend my learners, when you're working on chapter 2 itself, get a questionnaire structure. Once it's approved by the supervisor, you can go ahead with data collection. So that until you finish the 3rd chapter, and then extra addition time you will have to get the survey full. So my recommendation is soon after your lit review, when you're working, just get it approved and go ahead with data collection.
As long as it's approved, right?
Yeah, it has to be approved. So we have an ethical clearance form. In fact, your assignment brief, and let me open the module kit for you. Yeah. Meanwhile, anyone asking for questions there? I'll just get your Okay, if you notice, this is depiction of your module kit. There's something called as forms, right? One is approval of dissertation submission form, which ideally you need to get it approved and signed by a supervisor towards a closure. After you complete all the 5 chapters, run the Turnitin with the collated 5 chapters. You may have to fill all these details. And then get your supervisor's sign. Only if this is signed, we approve your work. If not, it will be reverted. And also, we need a digital signature of the learner. So student sign, supervisor sign is mandatory for it to process. When will you give this? After you complete 5 chapters, run the Turnitin, collate all the chapters. Please do not run Turnitin after every chapter. It's not essential. So as and when you're finishing chapter 1, upload it in LMS. Your faculty supervisor will approve. Chapter 2, upload it to LMS. They'll give you reviews, comments, whatever it is. But the document needs to be uploaded to LMS. Chapter 3, upload it in LMS. And when you're uploading chapter 3, get your ethical clearance form signed. In fact, this is the form. So it's in the same form sheet. Yeah. So approval of dissertation and then ethical clearance. So all these are available in your module kit. So it says ethics clearance. Get the form filled duly. Get your questionnaire ready. And get the sign of your supervisor here. And you may have to get your signature here, digital signature. So this you will do as and when you finish your third chapter. And you don't have two pathways for third chapter. So you'll only upload third chapter, ethics. Once it is signed, you keep it for your reference, send a copy via email to your supervisor. Then you start your data collection, everything. After fourth chapter, you will upload the final draft after fourth and fifth chapter. So you only have three pathways, 1, 2, and 3 to upload in LMS. 4 and 5, once it is done, compile all your chapters like a draft and then upload your draft for the approval. Once draft is approved, run Turnitin to check similarity index. If it's highly plagiarized, you may have to rework. So don't sit until the end for your Turnitin check. Do it at the earliest as possible. And then finally, you'll be in a position to get the approval of dissertation form. So technically, when you finish your dissertation, you must have 4 files uploaded to the LMS. After your faculty supervisor approves, one is final dissertation, which is in the form of Word document. And the second one is Turnitin of dissertation. I'm just posting that on chat. Third one, ethical clearance form. This has to be signed by supervisor. And fourth is dissertation approval form. This has to be signed by both student and supervisor, which means you are declaring this is your work. And supervisor says, I have no qualms and this is good to go for submission. 4 files is mandatory to be uploaded to your LMS. Okay.
And all of these gonna be highlighted later on?
Yeah, technically your supervisor is going to help you to state all this pertaining to your dissertation. And in line with the proposal, I have given you an outline. I'm going to re-reflect this in the next 2 classes as well. That is in Thursday and Saturday's class. I'm going to re-reflect completely so that you're going to literally have this like a foolproof mechanism within yourself. So I'm going to reiterate the complete process again. So probably I'll be using last 30 minutes in both the sessions, especially the last day, that's the next Saturday. I'm going to run through completely. So you can ask me as much as queries you want, just like a Q&A, because I'm planning to finish the portions in Thursday's class. And Saturday, I definitely want to budget time for this and give you instructions. So it's better you people start working on your proposal, put everything in the Word document. Also, I wanted to share, and why this Teams attachment doesn't appear, I also wanted to share one particular aspect where I've created a kind of sample, which I will provide you in the weekly email.
By the way, Sunday will be the last day you will be with us?
Next Saturday, the upcoming Saturday, which is
next week.
Yeah, 23rd.
And from there, we're supposed to be contacting our allocated supervisor, right?
Yeah, after your proposal presentation, it will be a different supervisor whom you'll get in touch with.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right. So yeah, this is what I wanted to re-reflect. So I've given a few run through. I'll be attaching this as well, apart from what is part of your assignment brief. Now, what I'm sharing is actually the assignment brief, but within that, I've re-articulated a few stuff for you to work on, let's say, all these key highlighting facts, which can be part of your major work. So when I put in informations like this, it becomes more easy for you to rework on your proposal as well. So I'll be sharing this. In fact, if you notice here, I have given a few hints for those of you all who are struggling. Okay, what is a quantitative, qualitative part of Sunday's research onion? Here I've given an outlook. Okay, so you can use this. So whatever is on left-hand side holds good for quantitative study. What's right-hand side holds good for your qualitative study. So I'll be attaching this. Go through. You just need to spend some time to understand how it works. So next 2 classes, again, I'm definitely going to help you because it's too early for you to get jarred with more of information. And since I'm working with this program quite some time, so I'm able to articulate it, but for you, it'll take some time, but I'm there to handhold and help you, so not an issue. So Sanad, the supervisor will be assigned to you after your presentation. Once you finish your presentation, you'll receive an email which says so-and-so is your supervisor along with the email ID and other instruction. And when would you submit your dissertation? It's on 20th of December. That's your last date to submit your dissertation. So you have time until then. Correct? Any other questions? If not, I'll call it a wrap. Actually, we have bobbed the time.
Ma'am, it's the topic. Are we going to do the review today?
Sadith, okay, you had sent an email prior to the class. Yes. I will send a response to you probably latest tomorrow. Yeah. I'll be sending a response to you tomorrow. I think Malik as well had asked on his title. So I'll send it to you. If not, I'll just respond to you in some time. Okay, just wait. I'll respond to you in some time, both Malik and you, so that you can work tomorrow. Okay? All right. So until then, take care. Have a pleasant evening. So do not panic. It's quite simple. It's just that you need to get the mechanism right. Yes, Aziz, I'll be adding in a lot of contents and also give instruction. Please go through my this particular week's email. Prototype of slide deck, proposal outline, and a bit of work on what should be part of your proposal, and an outline on the timeline I'll be providing. So don't panic. And yes, Aziz, I'll include you in the weekly email. I saw your email. I was checking with Cass as well. So don't worry. Okay? So thank you. So take care. Do not panic, but start working on your proposal. Just download the brief, start filling in the information. That's the first step which you need to take. Else the other things will fall in place because it's just not you. The entire lot is with you. So each of you all have the same level of momentum. So you can just get into the swing of it. So good luck. Take care, start working, and have a pleasant night. See you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.